Garden Report is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
Hey, Bobby Manning here, Noah Dalzell, practice edition of the Garden Report, and first interview with Lonnie Walker in the books, first view of him here at the Celtics practice facility ourselves, and all around pretty good stuff from him. Being willing to do whatever it takes to make this team, even if he doesn't make this team. I thought the most important quote of the day was that he's willing to spend some time in Maine, which is something I put out there as well when they signed him with the Exhibit 10 there. So it looks like one way or another, he could be sticking on here, but they're going to make him prove it. They're going to make him show that he's capable and a good fit here on this team, and look great shooting threes in the corner, especially where he's been super efficient throughout his career, and then the interview saying all the right things there. So by all impressions, a good start for Walker here in camp, even if he does face an uphill battle to playing for Boston early on.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like he was the guy that everybody was the most excited to speak with, and I was actually off in the corner filming Derek White's trick shots when all of a sudden I realized he was speaking, and it felt like the president was talking, like the one guy that everybody wants to hear from. And yeah, like you said, he said all the right things. You know, I think he's going to work really, really hard, recognizing that certainly nothing is guaranteed here. And in fact, like the assumption is that he's on a training camp deal, and that's all that's guaranteed. And he sounded like pretty clearly disappointed at the fact that free agency didn't go better and that he wasn't able to get a guaranteed deal. I think that there was some speculation in some pockets of the world where people felt like maybe he passed down a guaranteed deal to take the Exhibit 10 with the Celtics, and I think he made it clear that that was not the case, and I don't think anybody would pass down a guaranteed contract for a training camp deal unless there was like a very heavy commitment there. But yeah, I think everything we've heard from him, and he spoke on NBC Boston yesterday, like he's just a very hard worker, and he's working all day, every day, pretty much. He hasn't really been exploring Boston. He hasn't been doing anything else. He's just going to leave everything on the floor and give it his best chance here. Yeah,
and I like the fact that he's willing to go to May. I think that's so important because there's not minutes available when this team's fully healthy. And as we've talked about, there's a $10 million tax hit if you're going to sign him to a deal. It's risky if he goes off in Maine or someone else has an injury or an issue where they need to pick up a guy. He's right there for the taking. There's no rights that the Celtics have over him if they do send him to Maine. But can he reshape his game up there? Can he commit to that portion of the season, whatever it is, maybe it's half the year that he's up there? That's something I've said from the very beginning would be a great thing. Luke Cornett did it. He didn't have a guaranteed deal coming off that 2021 season. He just signed in Maine and played a year up there. It's not easy. You're not going to make not much money, but you do get the bonus with the Exhibit 10, and I'm sure, again, the Celtics would sign him later in the season if he's able to show improvement and fit, because I do think he has to alter his game a little bit here, and he talked a little bit about how he would fit in on this roster. Here's what he had to say.
You know, as far as second unit scoring, I think everyone knows that I could score, you know, my abilities to do that, but I think I do have really good, you know, I'm athletic, you know, I have the strength and the speed to play with the best of them, so I think this year I really wanted to really lock in on that defensive side and kind of show everyone that I can play defense if given I could play my true position and go from there.
So you've been high on him. Do you think they should sign him right out of camp, have him for the full year? Do you think he's someone that they need?
You know, it's hard to gauge. I think now learning about maybe the post-player backups the situation being a little bit more tenuous than we had known. Luke Cornett's wrist surgery seems like it's probably going to not be much of a factor, but just the fact that we sat down at media day yesterday and the first thing that we learned was that the two backup bigs had surgery over the offseason. I understand the desire to leave that spot open, not just to save money, which is easy for me to say that the money piece is not a factor, but also just to ensure that there is a big that they can maybe pick up if they need to. That being said, I have a hard time imagining that if Lonnie Walker goes to Maine, that he doesn't get picked up by another team very quickly. And so it may come down to them, you know, seeing it, like, is this guy worth, like, obviously there's going to be some losses here that are, you know, suffered if he's signed, you know, financially and otherwise and flexibility wise. But if he's like dominating camp and going off, and I wouldn't be surprised, I mean, I think that he talked about it today, like he's always been a bucket getter since the womb, I think he said. In that case, maybe you think to yourself, like, we might have just gotten a steal. And there is certainly precedent with the Celtics organization to pick up guys that maybe were overlooked by other people and turn them into real rotation players. And I don't think anybody would be surprised if Lonnie Walker became a rotation player.
It is hard to imagine that he's in this situation, that he's not going to have that kind of interest there. So they can try to get by and get that break, but I also agree. I don't think it's going to happen. I also don't think that there'll be a better 15th man option out there. So it just comes down to what they need, which of course could be front court help, as you mentioned there, and what he wants. And that's obviously going to be a guaranteed deal in a position to play. So it's good that they found each other in this spot, and he's patient, as Joe Mazzulla said, and willing to, take this situation in stride. And they've had their conversations too about what it's going to be like here, and he seems to like it here. I'm sure he wanted to be here. So it's going to be one of the more interesting stories at camp. I put out 10 training camp questions. He's one of the big ones over on Celtics blog and CLNS Media. So go check out the stories from there. And camp today, all the latest news. Xavier Tillman, we talked about that a little bit earlier here today as well. And just some most of our sponsors, Game Time, go download the app. Use the code CLNS to get a discount on your first purchase there. Terms apply. And Prize Picks, use the code CLNS for a bonus over there. She's Noah Dalzell. I'm Bobby Manning. There's been a practice edition of the Garden Report, and we'll have practice coverage throughout the week here on CLNS Media and Celtics All Access. Go subscribe. Hey, Bobby Manning here. If you made it this far, you probably enjoyed this video, so subscribe, turn on notifications, and check out our social media platforms at Celtics CLNS